Okay, so yeah, welcome everyone to the Manchester Java community. First of all, just like to thank our sponsors. So just over the last week, we managed to strike a nice little sponsorship deal with Barry Cranford and RecWorks, and they're the people who founded the London Java community, and now they're going to be supporting us by covering our meetup fees. So that's really cool. So we appreciate that. Thanks to Barry and his team, who we've been working quite closely with over the past few months. I mean, other than that, there's kind of not really a lot for me to say. I'd just like to really introduce Baruch, and I'll hand over to you essentially to introduce yourself properly.
Yeah, I will. It's somewhere in my slides. Thank you very much, Nick. I'm very excited to be here. Well, I would be very excited to actually be there. As I mentioned to Nick, Manchester is on my bucket list, and I miss the in-person events so much. But it is what it is. We are where we are, and we'll make the best out of it by speaking about what DevOps has to do with developers, or should I say has nothing to do with developers. We'll talk about that. So usually when we do this talk in person, I love to ask the question of, do people know what DevOps is? And you know what? I asked it so many times that I can be pretty sure that some people just straight up give up that they don't. Others have opinions, and they're all very different. And that's astonishing because DevOps has been around for more than 10 years. And still people talk about DevOps engineers, which is not even a thing. And I'm going to talk about that today a lot, and how how DevOps is actually ops, which is obviously not true. And there are some ridiculous things like this, that people actually get job as DevOps engineers and then start asking questions what DevOps is. And obviously we will start with talking about what DevOps is, and then we will talk about why we as developers care or don't care about DevOps at all. So yeah, my name is Baruch Sadogursky. I'm the Chief Sticker Officer in JFrog. That's my business card, real thing. And the part on the right is actually sticker. So again, if you get my business card, you can use it as a sticker. That's kind of the idea. No stickers in virtual, unfortunately, maybe on WhatsApp or wherever the stickers are, but nothing more than that. My Twitter handle, though, is very real and working at jbaruch. So let's connect there, continue the conversation. Feel free to follow me. My DMs are open as well if you need something. This is the most important slide of this talk. If you go to jeffrog.com/show notes, you will find a page there dedicated to this talk. In this page, the slides are already there. The video, as we are recording, Nick is going to publish it on YouTube, and I'm going to link it there as well, so you'll have everything in one place. All the links to everything that I'm going to mention are there. The place to comment, to rate, and a very nice raffle for thanking you for being here. It's an Amazon Echo 5, Amazon Echo Show 5, which is a very nice smart monitor. Definitely recommend you to participate in the raffle. So you go to jeffrog.com/show notes, and it's on the bottom of every page, as my Twitter handle and the Twitter handle of this meetup group, and a hashtag DevOps. If you mention it on Twitter, go ahead. It will bring some attention to you as well. So why am I talking to you about DevOps for developers? So you obviously noticed JFrog, you might heard about us. We are doing tooling for helping making DevOps happen. But me, myself, if you looked at my LinkedIn, I'm a developer. I'm a Java developer with almost 20 years. I think like April next year will be my 20 years anniversary as a Java developer. And this is how I kind of have both perspectives, like as a developer myself, but working in a company, which is a really DevOps company. And I will take you through the journey that will be built in two parts. The first, I will talk about where DevOps came from, how it came to be, why this movement has started, and then we're going to talk about what's in it for you. So let's start in the beginning. Most of the people learn about DevOps from this marvelous book. The Phoenix Project is definitely very, very important book to promote DevOps just because it's an entertaining non-fiction literature that gives you a very good overview as a story of why DevOps is important. And conveniently enough, on the cover of the Phoenix Project, you can see the main characters of the story. And I would like us to look at them now and try to see what DevOps is about through the people who are participating in this DevOps journey that described in the Phoenix Project. So here we go. Patty, and I'm just going from left to right, not by any order of importance. She's director of IT service support. You can see she's an ops person. She actually manages service support, which is like, escalations of IT equipment and this kind of stuff. Wes Davis, her colleague, is a director of distributed technology ops. He has ops in the name. He's an ops guy. There are some people who are not technical, like Sarah, VP of Retail Ops, and Steve, CEO, and then Dick, the CFO. This is all fine. And now we get to the main protagonist of the book, the main character, Bill Palmer. He's the VP of IT Ops. He is an ops guy, and he is like the main character. He goes through this transformation and discovers DevOps for the entire organization. He's an ops guy. A board member, and then the main technical person of the book is Brent, and he is a lead sysadmin. Sysadmin, he is ops. And then there is John, who is the CISO. So you see something that should bother you a lot. No developers in the story. Well, there are some developers in the story, but first of all, they're kind of playing secondary flute, and they're also not, they pictured not really in like a good light throughout the book. And this kind of raises all kind of flags. Is DevOps an ops idea, an ops story, something that ops came with, and for what? Let's look at another evidence. The DevOps Handbook, that's kind of the second book that you will read after the Phoenix Project if you want to learn about DevOps. And here, let's look at the authors. So Jim Kim, he's the author of the Phoenix Project. And we just kind of digested what the Phoenix Project is about and what are the thoughts of Jim Kim of where DevOps came from and why. Let's look at the others. Patrick Dubois, the person who came up with the term DevOps 10 years ago, Patrick used to be a system architect. System architect is like the architecture of whatever sysadmins are doing, of the pipelines and everything else. That's an ops position. Oh, sorry. Giz Hempel, the author of an amazing book, Continuous Delivery, the co-founder and co-author of the Accelerate book and the State of DevOps report, a very important person in the DevOps ecosystem, deputy director of delivery architecture. Delivery is an ops concept. And then John Willis, the father of DevSecOps, if you wish, he was a VP of services in a company literally called Ops Code, automation of ops. All the founders of DevOps are ops people in the background. Now let's see who teaches us about DevOps. You can see here, you Google it and you see immediately New Relic. New Relic, it's a monitoring platform for ops. And then Amazon Web Services, cloud infrastructure as a service, ops. CollabNet, they're like a mixed bag, but then again, the agile admin, system administration right there. Wikipedia, and then again, Atlassian, DevOps company. And then Azure, another infrastructure as a service cloud platform. And then in the bottom, Logs.io, obviously monitoring an ops concept. It looks like everywhere you look, this DevOps thing was invented by and promoted by ops people. And then you ask yourself, why? What's going on? Why this DevOps thing is pushed so hard by ops people? Let's try and understand what this DevOps thing is about. If we Google what DevOps job is, you find some interesting stuff. For example, here is an answer on Quora. So what you need to do is basically you have all your, being a Linux administration will help you go easily get started with DevOps because it all starts with Linux fundamentals. Fine. So you go all this Linux fundamental, and then the only thing that is DevOps here, according to Disha, is the DevOps tools, something that is called Gits and Chef and Maven and everything. So basically you learn Gits, you are a system administrator, you learn Gits, and now you're DevOps. And how it's great to be DevOps? Well, look at that. Linux system administrators get this much, DevOps engineers get 50% more. Isn't it nice? And then it's a super hot job. You can see that only in the United States, there are 15,000 open positions for DevOps engineers. And all those platforms that we spoke about promote the thing it's DevOps engineer through certifications and books and everything else. So then you say, aha, I got it. This DevOps is a plot of system administrators to rebrand themselves and start earning more money. Is it true? It's not. It's not true because this is confusion because a cause and an effect. 10 years ago, when Patrick Dubois and Jim Kim and Jez Humble and John Willis came up with this idea, no one knew that it will create such a huge hype that you will be able to earn 50% more by just learning Gits and calling yourself DevOps engineer. No one knew that it was happen. So it cannot be the reason. So what is the reason? What is the reason ops came up with DevOps? To understand that, we need to look at the true definition. And the true definition of DevOps is this. It's the infinity loop of planning, coding, building, testing, releasing, deploying, operating, and monitoring. Now you look at this infinite loop and you say, hey, this looks familiar. This looks very familiar. It almost looks like the agile infinity loop, which is plan, design, develop, test, release, feedback. And we all know that agile is good for us. At least I hope so. And if not, that's a topic for an entirely different talk, agile for developers or against them. But let's assume we all know that agile is the way to go because it allows us to postpone it. It allows us in the environment of uncertainty to postpone decision-making to the latest point possible. So we will be able to make more knowledgeable decisions when we actually don't know anything. And that's our life. And you say, well, agile is good. I understand it. But DevOps is like they took our part of the job, the developers, and then added to it tons of stuff, which has nothing to do with us, with the developers. I mean, seriously, deploy, operate, monitor. This is not us. We do our side. We do design, develop, test, and that's what we do. So it looks like the ops people went ahead and took what we did and then added to it what they used to do, so we do it as well. Is it so? Let's check another proof. Let's look at the State of DevOps report. State of DevOps report is the most important, the most significant research that the DevOps industry has. It is done by what is called DORA, DevOps Research and Assessment Group, led by Dr. Nicole Forsgren and Jez Humble, and I think Jim Kim is with them. So it's kind of the same people all over. And they assess organizations, 30,000 organizations, they assessed based on those metrics. The metrics are deployment frequency, something about deploying code, lead time to changes, after we done coding, what's happening there, time to restore service after outages, and change failure rate, stuff like degraded service. And you look at that and you go like, what? Everything that is here has nothing to do with development. There are no metrics which speak to me, the developer. This is all ops story, and they call it DevOps. What the hell is going on? You look at the results and you see how new work is highlighted here so heavily. And new work should be highlighted heavily because new work, any type of work, this is where the money is. Those are the new features that obviously the customers pay. Now, the question is, what is defined as work in, what work the report refers to? Let's look. Planned work for them, business projects or new features. Okay, that makes sense. We do new features, that's great. But then internal projects, server migrations, you go like, what? What server migrations? I'm writing code. And then changes, okay. And then again, unplanned work, support escalations and emergency outages. What I have as a developer have to do with outages. This is all very fascinating, obviously, and probably important, but it has nothing to do with me as a developer. What the heck? For the developer, for us, types of work are very simple. New work are new features. This is what we do. And the not new work are either bug fixes or refactoring, right? Either defects or a technical debt. Fine. This is what we understand. This is not what DORA reports talks about. This is not what the Phoenix project talks about. This is not what the DevOps handbook talks about. So I hope I got you into the mood of my conspiracy theory that DevOps is a conspiracy of ops to make us, the developers, do more work. I hope you are all agree with me, all on board on this conspiracy theory. And with that, let's put the ridiculous and funny part of the talk to rest. Now let's get serious and let's really talk about what DevOps really is and why we, the developers, should care about it. So just to segue from the conspiracy theory, let me ask you, okay, so let's assume as a part of the theory that DevOps has nothing to do with us, the developers, and whatever work they refer to is not our work. What is our work? What is the proper developer work? There are obviously different definitions, and the one I like, regardless of what you feel about the software craftsmanship as an organization and the personalities behind it, I think the core values of the manifesto should resonate with most of the developers. What are the core values? We want to write better software. Yes, we are. We want this software to be useful by adding value. Yes. We want to be a community of professionals and learn from each other. Yes. And we want productive partnership with other organizations like the ops, the product, and everybody else. Yes, sure. This, I hope, everyone can get behind. Now let's look more closer and try to see what other people say about this manifesto and how can we bring it down. So I have a close friend of mine, Anton Keks. He works in Estonia in a startup that are proudly software craftsmanship startup. And this is how he kind of breaks those values into details. He speaks about how important it is to know a broad set of technologies, being a polyglot developer, how a true developer knows the essence and then can apply it to any possible technology, and tons of very, very interesting and on-point stuff. And then he mentions deployment as an afterthought, like also deployment. And the reason why he kind of speaks about deployment is so you don't want to be called by the admin during the night. So again, we see here how developers now segregate themselves from the deployment part and saying, this is not our job. The only thing why we should care about deployment is so we can sleep at night while those ops people are battling their deployment, which is not our job anymore, right? So looking at this list, we can come up with a definition of done for software. It will be, we understand what's need to be done. Yes, our code is readable, simple, understandable. Our code is easy to deploy. That's important. That's on us. We have collaboration with the ops team. We want to make their life easy. We want our code to be easy to deploy. It's still not our job to deploy it, but we care about that it will be easy. And then non-functional requirements are met, security, performance. We didn't incur any technical depth and even reduce some. This is great. The tester pass. Generally, the QA took a look and they're happy with the quality of our software, and the team lead is happy with the architecture or whatever the design. And the product owner, who is the proxy for the customer, took a look and they're happy, which for us means the customer or the client is happy as well. Now, again, this is all I hope most of you can relate to. Now I want to talk about why this list might not be conclusive. And I want to start this with an old misconception that I hope the majority of us already put behind. You probably remember this silly tug of war between developers and testers, how they are, in war with each other, and the developers are getting distracted by those testers that find those bugs which are not really bugs but features, and the testers are upset with the developers because they do all those stupid bugs and they don't know how to code. Well, I hope you will agree with me that it's all bullshit. In the end of the day, the testers and the QA help us, the developers, write code with better quality. And I hope for all of us, better quality is important, is a big deal, and we all want better quality to our software. And that means that this conflict does not exist. It means that testers are helping us doing our job. And if we all agree that the quality is part of our job, then it means that we really need to care about it. Now, I obviously write code until now, but the last time I really coded full-time job for like production services was a way ago. And the definition of quality back then was different. This is my bank, Chase, 10 years ago. This is their website. Most of it doesn't work by now, but even then, back then, it wasn't very useful. It was nice. I could probably maybe see the balances and check where the closest branch is. But in the end of the day, if I wanted to do any serious banking, I would grab myself and go to the branch. So even if I saw something here in the news and announcement stream about, well, we have a maintenance window, it will be 12 hours because we need to upgrade our systems to ensure quality, I would probably go like, oh, whatever. I would just go to the branch if I need anything. Obviously, today, that's not the case. I don't remember the last time I visited the bank branch. It was probably like last year or something. And I don't need anything from the branch because today's quality assumes that I have everything on the website and in my mobile app. And today, something like 12 hours maintenance for update, it's completely unacceptable in terms of quality. I would say, well, it's a crappy website, it's a crappy app if it takes 12 hours of downtime to update. So our definition of quality changed. What else has changed? The software itself. We now have much more complicated software with much more data in it. And that makes testing much more complicated. complicated to a point that it doesn't make sense anymore to have a staging server in a classical terms on it. And the classical term would be we have a copy of production environment that we can test the shit out of it, and then we are 100% sure that we can go to production and we'll have no bugs. There is no such thing anymore. In more and more organizations give up on this idea just because it's not feasible or not worth it from economy perspective to invest in a copy of production environment. So how can we still guarantee quality, which is, to remind you, is a part of our job as a developers? Well, we start testing in production. There is an entire industry that is called everything around progressive delivery, that this is what it does. CANARY deployments, feature flags, reducing blast radius, observability, all those are new terms that emerged from this need of guaranteeing quality and this limitation of we can only guarantee the quality in production. Now, if we as developers care about the quality of our code, it turns out that we cannot go to the pub and start drinking while the ops are battling with the deployment because our quality is not yet guaranteed. We have to be there in production when our code is deployed, because this is the only place we can see the quality of our code and decide whether we are done as developers or not. And that's by definition means we need to be there, we need to be on call. So suddenly we have another new entry in our definition of done, which is SRE took a look and they are happy. Who are those SRE and what it has to do with us? According to Google, who came up with the term, SRE, which stands for Software Reliability Engineer, Service Reliability Engineer or Site Reliability Engineer, SRE implements DevOps. This is the engineering part, the engineering aspect of DevOps. And SRE are in charge of making sure that what you wrote will be deployed in production. And that's different from SRE are in charge on deploying to production, because you deploy to production as a developer. SRE are making it possible through building pipelines, through automating around the releases, etc., etc. They are in charge of making sure you can deploy to production. And why now you care about what they are thinking? Because, as we just spoke, you care about the production quality. You need to see your application through all the way to production. And the way it gets to production now is suddenly something that you as a developer care about. So what does it mean SRE took a look and they are happy? So first of all, we understand how our code is going to be deployed. That's kind of the basics. If we want to deploy it successfully, rapidly, we need to understand what's going on. The build is reliable, repeatable, and fast. Very important. If now we care about quality. We discovered the bug. It's our bug. We fixed it. We need to get it to production as fast as possible because our software is already in production and people are suffering. The code has to be built successfully, reliably, repeatably, and fast. Our code is stateless. Another bug, which is also our bug, is that our system is too slow. And it's too slow because there is too much load. We need to scale. For that, we need software that can be scalable. Our code starts fast and dies fast. Starts fast again because we need to fix stuff that we broke as fast as possible, but also we need to take down misbehaving code as fast as possible, and it should die fast as well. Our code is observable. We need to know if there is a problem, and that's again on us. Part of it is the logging that we add or don't add. There are other aspects of observability, and that's yet again another talk. Our code supports feature flags. We want to be able to turn off something that doesn't work as it should immediately without rebuilding and redeploying. We can do it programmatically. We can embed feature flags and say, hey, I want to turn off this feature because it doesn't work well. I will fix it, and then we will redeploy and turn it back on. Our code backwards and forwards compatible, obviously, but also if we are talking about rollbacks, we're going to roll back now. New clients is going to use old code. It should work. How can we guarantee that? Our code emits event streams, again, that goes to observability. And this is also looks very familiar as well. There is another manifesto, and I'm into manifestos today, and that's the 12-factor app. The 12-factor app is a little bit dated now, but still very relevant description of how do you write an application that runs successfully in the cloud, what it's called the cloud native app. The cloud native app, it's an app that was born to run in the cloud. How do you write it? What are the aspects? You can see here that the aspects are exactly the same. What we spoke about is pretty much described here, just in a different terminology. It's not conclusive, since there we discovered other factors which are summarized in other books like Beyond the 12-Factor App. And again, if you go to jeffrey.com show notes, it's right here in the bottom of the slide. You can find a link there to the 12-Factor App and the Beyond the 12-Factor App. Both of them are free resources for you to take a look, right? So going back here, this is the list of what SRE cares about, and that means that you care about as well. But there is one more, and this one is our code is lean. And by lean, I mean saving money to the organization. What is the biggest expense of the organization in terms of runtime? Well, their cloud bill. And you heard how all those AWS bills are very confusing and not intuitive and cost a lot of money. And you go and ask yourself again, what the hell I have to do with that? That's an ops concern. You have engineers in the that take care of it, and those are the SRE that I mentioned. Let them figure out how to minimize this bill. Well, not exactly. We as developers have a very big impact of how much it costs to the organization to run our code. And here's one example. This is Kafka Summit last year, and you can see here how Uday from Signal Effects gave a talk about how they achieved 50% reduction in cross availability zones network costs by just implementing Kafka correctly. I don't think anyone will argue that implementing Kafka is something that we as developers are in charge of. And then you see how important it is for reducing the operational costs of an organization. And I have to say that Signal Effects, they had billions of transactions every day because they do observability for huge organizations. And this is tons of money. That's like a lot. So suddenly, not only we care about production from quality perspective, we also care about production from business perspective, from costs and revenue and all this kind of stuff. And suddenly it's a good thing because now we are empowered to help the business do the right thing. So next time we have to cut costs, instead of laying off the developers or starting charging for coffee, we can switch to serverless and move to the cloud. And this is how we save money. So instead of worrying about layoffs and paying for coffee, we should start learning cloud native and Google how to pronounce kubectl correctly. So suddenly we are a very big part of business that ask questions that we can answer as developers. We need more happy customers. What the customers want? They want new features. When the customers want the new features, they want them yesterday. How we can help? We can implement DevOps. Looking at the State of DevOps report, elite organizations, those who ship faster, actually those who implement DevOps ship 208 times faster, more frequently than those who don't. Suddenly, implementing DevOps has a very big business implications, and as I hope you saw by now, it's in our hands to do that. The same for security. We need to improve our security. Well, one way is to hire CISO and blame them for the outages. The other way is to make sure that we can react to security incidents the fastest possible. As we react when we drive and we want to make sure that we see the problem and then apply the brakes as fast as possible. The same with security. We want to identify a breach, fix a breach, and then deploy, update our software as fast as possible again. And the update part is about DevOps, is about deploying the fix 208 times 208 times faster. So you see how DevOps is an evolutionary process. It's not that someone just decided, hey, let's do DevOps for the fun of it. There are very serious reasons in quality, in money, in business for DevOps, because DevOps is a mean to an end. It's a mean to achieve better quality, cost savings, faster and better new features to the customers, and security. And what that means is that DevOps is here to stay. And the only question is, how do we do it correctly? Now let's look at how do we do it correctly. Now, once we made peace with the infinity loop and embraced it and realized that, yes, we're all in it together and we are all going to participate in it, let's ask what it actually takes. When you look at the definition of term DevOps, it's dev and ops kind of merging together into this wonderful mythical DevOps thing. You might say, well, now what is required for me as a developer is start learning all the ops concepts and becoming not only dev engineer, but also ops engineer and QA engineer. Well, good news. Those engineers that know everything do not exist. They are as rare as unicorns farting rainbows. DevOps engineer does not exist because DevOps is not about knowing everything. It's about collaborating between everybody. So DevOps engineer makes as much sense as collaboration engineer, which is obviously do not exist. And this is a complete misunderstanding of what DevOps is about. What DevOps is about is T-shaped people aligned in empowered teams. What do I mean by T-shaped people? I mean is that you, as a software developer, you still being very good software development. And that's kind of the leg of the T when you know your stuff very, very well. But also you have now this broad top part of the T that goes into different directions, and you understand the world of other people. You understand how the pipelines work, kind of the ops aspect. You understand how the quality checks in the pipelines work, the QA part of the puzzle. You understand how the security checks are now embedded in your code, in the CI, in the pipelines, that the security, you understand the bigger picture. It makes you a T-shaped person, a T-shaped engineer, and teams of those engineers with different legs of the T. There are people who come who are developers, the people who are SREs, the people who are security engineers, all working together. This is what DevOps is about. Now, you remember how we started with this thing, DevOps doesn't care about developers? This while it was true 10 years ago, is very, very different today. And if we look at the last State of DevOps report that we have from last year, you can see how things change. Suddenly, you can see that among those 30,000 people that they asked, actually the majority are development or engineering. So they really start asking developers. And only the second is DevOps and SRE. You can see how the metrics include very clearly the part of software development. It is a part of DevOps, it's important. And now the lead time is defined not where the coding is done, but actually all the process, including development itself. And more so, you remember the Phoenix project that didn't have a single developer in sight? Jin Kim, the same Jin Kim, the author of the Phoenix project, wrote another book. It's called The Unicorn Project. And this is the alternative reality. It's the same company facing the same problems and coming to the same solution, which is DevOps. But the person, the main protagonist, who came up with the idea of DevOps and managed to transform the organization and to win through DevOps is developer. Maxine, she's a lead developer now. So even those people who kind of always looked at DevOps through the eyes of ops now experience the change and understand that dev is a really huge part of DevOps. And what about those SREs? They are much closer to us, the developers, than the traditional system administrators. Look what SRE is. SRE is what you get when you treat operations if it is a software problem. Not only that system administrators disconnect to us, it's the opposite. They become a little bit of developers themselves when we talk about DevOps, because now they see their problems as software problems. And that means that, you know what, we're almost there. We're all dealing with software problems. We are very close to each other. We can all almost be both. So good news, everyone. Yes, DevOps is an ops idea, and there is no arguing with that. But the business liked it, and that means that it's here to stay because it provides quality, savings, competitive advantage, and security. And for us, it's not bad as we might thought it was, because in the end of the day, everything is code, and this is what we, the developers, do. We love code, and all we need is to follow principles and practices, and we definitely know how to do so. So yes, DevOps is more than okay. DevOps is great for us, and we definitely shouldn't be afraid of it or consider it against us. DevOps is great. With that, I'm Edge Baruch on Twitter. This is MCR Java on Twitter as well. When you tweet about this talk, whether you liked it or not, don't forget the DevOps hashtag and go to jeffrog.com/show notes. The slides are there. The video will be there. All the links are already there. And thanks to Ari, Amazon Echo Show 5 is for you to grab. Thank you very much. Questions?
Awesome. Thank you very much. That was really interesting. Yeah, have we got any questions from anybody on the call?
Hey, Nick, one thing I wanted to add is that, you know, we got a small, intimate crowd today, which is awesome. What I'm going to do is anyone that enters the contest at jfrog.com/show notes, there's no one that leaves a loser today, because what'll happen is everyone will get a t-shirt. So if you go ahead and enter the contest, I'll contact you via email so I can mail you one of our really cool JFrog t-shirts.
While we wait to the questions, let me see if I can find the t-shirt that Ari is talking about.
Yes, please do.
And you will see how awesome it is.
So was that on via the show notes link? We'll get to the entry page for that.
You'll see Baruch's talk on the top.
Right, cool. Oh yeah, so.
And we want organizers to enter too, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be cool. Oh yeah, there we go.
That's the t-shirt.
Awesome. That's good.
All right.
Yeah. So, has anybody got any questions? Don't know if anyone's put anything in chat.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please do.
Thanks very much. Very, very entertaining, interesting talk. I was a bit, what's the word? Initially, I was a bit worried with the first few slides, but then afterwards, I got the full picture.
That's the idea. That's the idea.
Cool. This is something I haven't really been clear about, and I've looked into it a bit, and I've had people talk about it, and even in your talk, you kind of referred to it. This whole idea of the SRE as well in the mix. I still can't grasp the difference. Isn't it just DevOps with a different name?
Yeah. All right, that's a great question. So first of all, another reminder: DevOps engineers do not exist. Okay, let's start with that, because DevOps is a set of collaborative practices. There is nothing engineering about it. It's not an engineering discipline. There is nothing technical about it. DevOps is about collaboration between dev and ops. Now, developers didn't change much in the process. We're still Java developers. We write our code. We do pay attention to the cloud native nature of the code that we write, all the aspects of the 12-factor app, fine. But the ops cannot stay the same. The good old system administration as an engineering practice is dying. It's dying because it's by definition very manual, very bottleneck, very wait for it. I'm going to log into the server and set up stuff here, and then it will be different a little bit from the other server because I don't remember exactly how I did it. The problem in implementing the rapid releases that DevOps inclines, the real bottlenecks are the old school system administrators. They need to evolve, and they indeed evolved. They evolved into software engineers. It's an engineering discipline, the site or the service reliability engineers, who are now helping us, the developers, to deliver the software that we are writing by providing the infrastructure. Who is in charge of building, configuring, and working on the pipelines? Who are in charge in making sure that we can spin up environments, any environment, including production, and then tear it down when needed? Who are in charge in making sure that the testers and the security are embedding their checks into the pipelines? The SREs are the people who are working to make the infrastructure available for the entire organization to be able to release the software 208 times faster than before.
Oh, brilliant. That's quite cool. So, so I work for a government department, and so what you just described is our DevOps and what we call, yeah. I get what you're saying, but within my team, for instance, all the stuff you just described, the people, we don't have old school ops. We have a bunch of guys who know well about systems and who know how to use Terraform and all that, Jenkins and all that stuff, and work with the devs to, as you said, build pipelines, make sure that we can deploy quickly, blah, blah, blah. So that's what we call DevOps as a role, but it seems to me, based on what you're saying, it's more of an SRE. Should be.
So if you call them DevOps, so you have dev, which is you, and then you have DevOps as is them, and then the collaborative practice between them should probably be called DevOps, right?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So the follow-up question is this. So what my project is trying to do, and I've actually seen this work in the previous place that I worked in, is they're trying to merge the two roles. So they're saying it's not efficient for devs to be on the dev side, just cutting Java and doing Maven publish and going home. And maybe we do interact and work with DevOps to make sure that the pipelines are working and make sure that we're deploying the right way. But they're now saying devs should jump in, get involved in doing Terraform, get involved in Puppet, the whole DevOps tool sets, and to some extent, because it's easier for devs to do all those things than for the people who are traditionally ops to actually write clean, efficient, like Java or Node code. But the whole drive is to have what they're calling platform engineers, which is polyglot, you can do everything, typesetting. And the dream is you just have people, you just hire people, and they can do anything in that whole process end to end. Is that feasible and encouraging direction? Or?
So I'll tell you what. To be frank, as I mentioned, it's very, very hard to be expert in everything. I guess there are not a lot of people out there who can actually do that. And those people are very rare to find and very expensive. But the good news are you don't really need it. As long as you have the collaborative practices well set up, as long as you speak with each other, as long as you work towards the common goal, it's completely fine to be expert in development or to be expert in site reliability engineering. You don't really need to be expert in both as long as you understand what they are doing in the general terms. You are willing to work together towards the common goal and you have good collaborative practices. I don't believe in this DevOps is about you become expert in everything just because humans are limited in what we can possibly grasp to a level of an expert. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'd kind of back that up. I work as an SRE, and I think, yeah, the term DevOps engineer, I almost see that as a bit like a marketing term to get people interested in the job. But actually, in reality, what they're doing is they're enablers for the organization, that people are building platforms and tools that enable devs to be productive, essentially, and do things well. So I think, yeah, I totally agree with what Baruch is saying there. It's DevOps engineer is just kind of a bit mythical. And I think you mentioned there about the dream of everybody being able to know how to, understand all the ops tools. I think there's just too much. There's too much complexity. There's too many new things happening and changing all the time. And do you want everyone in the organization to relearn and get these new kind of lower level skills every 3 or 4 years, or do you want to abstract some of that kind of complexity from them? I think it's finding that balance is the key. Give them enough information so they kind of know what's happening. But yeah, will they ever need to know how everything works inside out? I'd say definitely not. And that's probably not, it's not even possible, I don't think.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's cool. It's an interesting topic, that's for sure. And I imagine it gets some kind of good debate going.
Yeah, it's always fun. And I feel a little bit like Don Quixote fighting the windmills on my quest against the term DevOps engineer. But I think it is important because this kind of terminology incentivizes behavior. And once you have DevOps engineers and you start to organize them in the DevOps teams, then this is the end of it. You're back to square one. It's just instead of ops or system administrators, now you have a completely isolated and siloed team that called the DevOps team that have a bunch of DevOps engineers. And the only thing you can do now is come up with DevOps and start all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started from there. When I joined, there was a special DevOps team and they had the devs teams, and it was always basically was the old pattern, just an ops team. And then what we then did was merge it all together. So we're all in the same team now. It's a much smaller unit, and there's a lot of collaboration. They still do what we call DevOps engineers, still focus on the building pipelines, getting deployments through, learning, basically building the tools for us to get deployments through and stuff like that. But we're all in the same teams, the same stand-ups, the same boards, the same tickets go through. There's better communication and collaboration, which helps.
I think what you often kind of see probably in like larger organizations particularly, is that sometimes there might be new ideas, and having that small group of people who have got that motivation or interest to kind of explore some of these things and prove out ideas and try and get that buy-in from the wider organization. Maybe that's where these kind of DevOps teams originate. And but the idea, that they then become, they then disperse and it's just part of the organization, is probably the right path to go, rather than it be a persistent thing that lives forever and everybody depends on, because then, like you say, it's just ops, essentially, if that happens. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Awesome.
Hi.
Cool.
Is there a particular size team that you would recommend that DevOps practices starts to make more sense? So we've only got a small team of devs, and they're pretty much stretched at the moment. So to add something like that onto their plate as well, it seems like a lot to ask for smaller teams.
I understand, and the issue is like everybody are stretching overwhelmed. We have no time to implement DevOps practices. It's something that obviously we hear a lot, but you know what? It's almost like, you remember this caricature when prehistoric people on square wheels are struggling to move the cartwheel, and then someone comes with them with the round wheel, and they're like, no, we have no time for that. It's more or less that. In the end of the day, implementing DevOps will allow the teams to have less stress or to deliver more, depends on what your priorities are, obviously. And sometimes you really need to stop and kind of get your head out of above the water and look on the big picture. Obviously, bringing someone with the existing expertise from outside who will help to with the burden, and also will make sure that you don't repeat other people's mistakes, is a very good idea. And if you are talking about DevOps as a profession, there'll be some DevOps consultants are those who actually make sense, who can take a look in your organization and see how the processes can be improved to actually make it easier for everybody and not just adding more work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, cool. That's a good question.
Well, we tend to be more project driven. So the only time new things are implemented is when there's a larger project. But the problem
Absolutely.
is we'll bring in a contractor which maybe has these skills, and then they'll implement it, and then they'll disappear in a year's time.
Yeah, but those techniques of how you deliver, how you build the pipeline, how you roll out the pipeline, those are completely portable, right? Once you learn them once, and when you have them, and you obviously need to update them to reflect the current technological state of the art thing. But in the end of the day, once you switched to deployment pipelines as opposite to manual deployment processes, it's going to be the same over and over again in each and every project. Those skills are completely portable.
Yeah, I think probably one of the challenges that I've seen, at least, is as a developer, which is my background, it's kind of being able to articulate and get your point across about why it's important to somebody who's just trying to sell new products or something, or wants new features building. And I mean, I suppose that's a challenge and a skill in its own right, is be able to have those kind of sensible conversations with the people who want the new features to say, actually, we need to slow down a bit so we can go faster in the longer term. And that's difficult. There's no easy answer to that. It takes a bit of kind of, I suppose,
Yep,
a bit of effort, a bit of kind of motivation to really make that difference. But start having those conversations would be the starting point, trying to talk about these things quite openly with the business.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. So cool. If that's all the questions, I think it is. Just like to say thank you very much to Ari and Baruch for kind of.
Nick, there was one more. I have a question. No, I'm just kidding. I actually have a comment. Two things. One is for those who entered the raffle, I will select the winner within 2 business days and then contact the winner via email. I'll contact everyone that entered regarding their T-shirt. But I just realized something else too. Next week, with all this DevOps talk, we actually have a workshop in that's good for European time. It's a hands-on workshop. And I just wanted to see, are you okay if I drop the link in the chat for people that would be interested in it? It's actually specifically for Java developers. So basically it's DevSecOps for Java developers, and Sven Rupert is actually going to be doing that hands-on. It's a great workshop. and it is, I believe, 10 a.m. Central European time. So I went ahead and I dropped that in there for anyone that would want to join it. We give you all the tools that you need for the workshop. They're free, and it's a good way for those who aren't as who have not been immersed in that culture yet to really get their feet wet.
Yeah, I mean, if you like, you can also share that on the meetup event. Feel free to kind of add the link in there. I don't know how kind of wide you want to share it, but if you'd like to, go for it. You're on mute. Sorry.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
So on the meetup page for this event, if you wanted to share it on there as well, feel free.
Sure.
You know, I'm happy.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, thank you very much, and hopefully, see you in person next time. Who knows?
Oh yeah, really hope so. Thank you so much for hosting us, and yep, see you in person next time.
Brilliant. Cheers.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, and by the way, Nick, Melissa texted me back and she says she's excited. She'll be very, very excited to hear from you.
All right, brilliant. Yeah, I'll drop her a message.
All right, good deal. Take care.
Lovely. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Yes, thanks everyone.